here's the problem with Chesterton students is that Thomas Aquinas and Chrysostom are pretty much a repeat of what they've studied at Chesterton. They've gotten a great liberal arts education, and now they're ready to specialize in something. And that's why they really start making use of university studies, because they go in really learning a great portion of what is studied at both those colleges.
Yeah.
Yeah.
University studies. I've never heard that expression before.
Well, I say university as in, the more specific disciplines that come from university degrees. If they want to study, say
sports medicine.
Well, yeah, if you want,
shopping at Oshman's.
But our friend Adrian, who's running the broadcast, went to the University of Minnesota School of Engineering and got an engineering degree, which is why he's now running the microphones tonight. So yeah.
Would that be mechanical engineering?
He did something called industrial engineering, which is systems analysis, and we've actually put his skills to use in helping us do our marketing and stuff. So, but I think we'll have him for a short time, and then he'll go off and then come back to us very successful and rich and tell us how to run things. So
I was just up in your neighborhood a couple of days ago, Dale.
Right, of course, yeah. Joseph, how are you doing? I see you've shaved. Have you gotten back to mass yet or not?
Oh yeah, we've been going to mass for a long time, and I shaved in the end as rebellion against Susanna, because she didn't want me to. She liked the hairy me.
She liked it. She liked
the hairy me, but I didn't like the hairy me, so I got rid of it.
Susanna's got great taste. My wife took me out in the backyard 2 days ago and cut my hair. So
God bless her.
Yeah, she did. That's what we used to do when we were newlyweds.
Yeah, Susanna's actually cutting mine now. I've just decided that I'm done with barbers. That's one of the benefits of COVID. Never going to go back to one of those again.
That's right.
I have to say, I have no memory of cutting one another's hair when Jackie and I were newlyweds. Yeah, we missed that one. We missed out on that.
But you did read about the Boer War together.
That's true. Yeah, exactly. It was
that's
it really drew us closer together. Yeah,
that's very similar.
Very similar.
Yeah. William, pipe up.
William, sorry. What are you drinking, William?
I'm drinking Chardonnay.
Chardonnay.
What kind?
Is it buttery? Is it a buttery Chardonnay?
It's not super buttery. It's sort of.
Is it oaky?
Is it oaky?
Well, let's see. What is it? Pole. It's a Paso Robles, estate grown, 2015.
Those Paso Robles wines are very nice. They're just north of Los Angeles.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm also drinking wine tonight. I'm actually at the moment I'm drinking a Californian Cabernet. But earlier, and one of the sisters here asked me to mention it on live, should it be appropriate for the Troubadours? I was drinking a Thousand Island Winery Lawrence River red, and it was actually surprisingly quaffable. So,
I mean,
I don't associate the Thousand Islands with wine, or wine that you would drink.
Yeah, I've had some New York State wines that are very, very good.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. I was tempted to haul the whole bottle over here, but they kindly put a bottle of Cabernet in for me early, and I thought that might be greedy. When they come to the room tomorrow, and there's piles of different wine bottles, in the place,
Well,
Joseph, where are you? I'm sorry, where are you?
I'm at a Dominican convent, Dominican Sisters of Fonjo, and I think it's in Messina, New York. So it's not far from the St. Lawrence River, so not far from the Canadian border, not too far from the Vermont border, that sort of northeast corner of New York, upstate New York. I arrived yesterday. I'm actually teaching. Mostly, I'm teaching the sisters Shakespeare. We're going through The Tempest, actually in some depth, which is fun. But I'll be doing some Solzhenitsyn and some round tables, and I wouldn't call it a retreat really, but it's a retreat for me. But for them, they're just sort of discussing stuff with them.
Did you fly in there out of Albany in one of those 2-horse airplanes? Or?
No, there is a 2-horse one that comes into Messina, but they weren't available at the moment. So I actually flew into a much larger hub airport called Ogdensburg. And
that's a diocese. Yeah, Ogdensburg is a diocese.
it is really,
Yeah.
Well,
It's the Diocese of Ogdensburg.
right. Well, and that's about 45-minute drive, an hour's drive from here. So we had to drive. I think that my concern is, as I was saying earlier before we went live, is that there were only 8 people on the plane from Washington Dulles to Ogdensburg.
Yeah.
And there's only one, even when there's no pandemic, there's only one flight a day out of here.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what the limit is, the threshold below which they just cancel the flight. Because if they cancel the flight, I'm talking about a 24-hour delay before I can get out of here. So I'm sweating on that.
I'm pretty sure I spoke there once before, a few years ago, and I flew out of Albany, I think, in an airplane that I don't think even held 8 people.
But it was holding 16 at the time.
No, it was full, but I mean, you're sitting right behind the pilot. You get to watch everything he's doing. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I did that once in Florida, from Tampa down to Naples. There's about
Joseph,
5
what's
people on the plane?
Joseph? What's the name? The Dominican Sisters of?
I'm sure I'm going to pronounce it wrong, but it's Fonjo.
How do you spell it?
I think it's Fanjeux.
I got it. Okay.
Did you say Bon Jovi?
Bon Jovi, exactly.
That's it.
That's how it's pronounced. Yeah, Bon Jovi.
I'm teaching them Shakespeare. They're teaching me lead guitar, William.
Shot through the heart. So Joseph and Dale, did we answer the question where the image of Chesterton came from that is behind Joseph in his usual Troubadour shot? Do we know where that image came from? My brother is actually watching right now, and Edward needs to know.
Now, are you talking about the image of Chesterton or the actual poster that I had?
He wants to know where the original image came from.
If someone wanted to get that image, what would he do?
Yeah, and I've got to see it again in order to remember it. I could track it down, but I can't remember what it looks like.
I'll describe it to you. It's kind of a drawing, and it looks like G.K. Chesterton.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, it's that one.
Yeah.
I will. Joseph will take a picture of it and send it to me, and I will identify it. I hope.
Yes, Susanna will do that for you. I haven't actually mastered taking photographs with a cell phone yet.
Oh, well then have Susanna do it. That would be even better. I'd appreciate that. I'm drinking a Cabernet Sauvignon from the state of Washington, Chateau Saint Michel. I was almost going to open a French wine tonight because of the film I'm talking about.
Oh,
but because I thought I would save that wine for a more important occasion. And you guys, you don't qualify as that.
No, my feelings are hurt.
If I was at home, I might have opened a bottle of vodka to go with my selection, but I'm not. So there we are.
hey, the question I put earlier via email. Are we avoiding spoiling endings and key moments in our movies? Do we care?
Yeah, we don't have to. I don't think there's any protocol. If it's a mystery and there's a reveal, I would say it's a sin to reveal the ending.
Can we not use reveal as a noun? Reveal is a verb. William, back me up. Joseph, back me up.
I'm backing you up.
Yeah.
Thank you. Reveal is not something you do when you find out what kind of baby you're having when you shouldn't have found out what kind of baby you're having.
So like I say, Daniel, if there's a reveal and it has to do with a mystery,
Okay.
that's a sin, much more a greater sin than a grammatical sin.
Yeah, don't reveal the reveal, Daniel.
Yeah, but if there's an important twist, you don't want to show
twist if you don't want to twist it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think you're welcome to talk about as much of the movie as you want because you get to do whatever you want. You only have 5 minutes to do it. That's the main thing.
Yeah, Daniel, I suggest you apply all the usual rules that are applied on Prairie Troubadour.
That's what I was expecting.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Thank you for that helpful clarification.
Yeah,
also, I wanted to nominate a little word that we could use that would trigger a drink.
Ah, well, we have
And
Two-
that word is
Reveal.
is systemic.
no.
I think
Systemic.
I think if systemic gets used, we need to take a drink.
I'm happy to do that, but you realize also, like reveal, systemic is not a word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Systematic.
It doesn't matter. That doesn't
One
matter.
of these neologisms.
It's pretty clear that Daniel needs to get sent off to a camp for
Yeah.
education.
All right. Well, if anybody reveals the word systemic,
Dan, did you ever tell us what you're drinking?
no.
I'm not drinking anything.
So you've suggested a drinking game when you actually don't have anything to imbibe.
What time is it? Do I have time to make myself a quick one?
30
Yes.
seconds. You have 30 seconds.
Yeah.
All right, I'll be back.
You can do it.
I'll be back or I won't be. It doesn't
Yeah.
really matter.
That's right. It doesn't matter. It's a good point. Yeah. Well, now that Dan's gone, let's do a reveal systemic on him.
Cheers.
Yes. Well, it's 7 o'clock, so we are going to begin. We are going to begin. All right. Welcome, everyone, to Tuesdays with the Troubadours. I have the great privilege of hosting the event tonight. I'm Dale Ahlquist, president of the Society of Gilbert Keith Chesterton. And I am joined by Joseph Pierce, who is coming to us from the far northeastern corner of New York in the town of Messina.
I think that's correct.
Yes, and Christopher Check, who is the president of Catholic Answers, is coming to us from the Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe in La Crosse, Wisconsin.
Amen.
And then William Fahey is coming to us from his standard location in New Hampshire, Merrimack, New Hampshire. Am I right? Is it Merrimack?
You are correct.
Okay, very good. And Daniel Kerr, possibly one of the most esteemed pig farmers in the world,
Thank you.
and also president and founder of St. Martin's Academy, coming to us from his back porch in Fort Scott, Kansas. Tonight, we are going to have a fun night. We are grateful for everyone who doesn't have anything better to do tonight than to listen to us tell you what movies you should be watching. And we are going to talk about this medium of the film, which everyone, of course, has been making great use of during the lockdown. People have been watching movies galore. And, they've all been glued to their screens. And I hope that some of you have taken advantage of watching some classics, some really highly regarded or deeply artistic movies, but also I think some that both entertain and educate or inform or enlighten or bring up the level.
Edify.
Yeah, edify. Good word, edify.
Edify is a good word. Almost as good as systemic, actually.
Yeah, it's almost as
A
good as-
reveal.
Here's to that.
Yeah, hear that. Yeah.
Mm.
So we're gonna go around the table tonight, and each of us is going to talk about. Although we were advertised as talking about our favorite movie, these are not necessarily our favorite movies. These are just movies that are particularly enjoyed by each of us that we want to talk about. As for our favorite movies, each of us is going to produce a list of their top 10 films. And in the next day or so, in the email that comes out from the Troubadours, each of us will give the list of supposedly our top 10 films. This is the most vivid art form, arguably, in history. In the fact that it combines really all other art forms, and it is both a literary and theatrical and musical experience. It's not sculpture, but it has also been the device of three-dimensional illusion has also been used in film. And yet, in spite of the amazing innovation and the amazing reach and the technological prowess that has been demonstrated in film, it is oddly an unsatisfactory medium. And it does something less in many ways than other art forms that technically do less. Many people who read will argue you get more out of a book than watching a movie. And many movies, of course, are based on books. And G.K. Chesterton, since someone was going to bring him up eventually, I thought I would, talked about the fact, even in the 1920s, talked about the fact there are people who are going to be watching movies. And this is before the advent of sound movies. He was saying there are people who are going to watch movies and think that they've had the impression of reading the book upon which the movie was based. And they're two different medium completely. And he said certain certain media do not translate into other media. It's a different experience. He said you can't play the Venus de Milo on the trombone, for instance. and so some of us I know are going to be talking about films that are based on books. And in some cases, we've maybe watched the movie but not not read the book. But that's one of the things we're going to talk about tonight. But why do these movies appeal to us? And what is their great success? How do they succeed? But we might also talk about how they don't succeed. So we haven't decided what the order is going to be yet. So I'm going to choose the order, and we are going to start right in Fort Scott, Kansas, with Daniel Kerr. Yes, we are.
All right, very fine. Am I on the clock, Dale?
Yes, you are.
All
Is
right,
he
very
getting
good.
paid?
So I chose this film not necessarily because it's my favorite film, but because it is relevant to one of the key artists involved in the making of the film. Recently, 91-year-old Ennio Morricone, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that name right,
Close enough.
passed away July
Ask
6th.
Joseph.
Passed away July 6th.
Morricone.
Morricone.
That's not it.
And Morricone, I'm going to say Morricone, I think was as far as I know, is probably the best composer for movies out there. Probably most well known for The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. But my favorite soundtrack for a movie comes from this particular movie by that Morricone was involved in, which is a 1986 film by Roland Joffe called The Mission. And The Mission takes place, the setting is the mid-18th century, somewhere in the confluence of Paraguay, Brazil, and Argentina. And there are various political players involved. There's the Catholic Church. There are the Jesuits who are operating among the native tribes in that area. And then you have the native tribe itself, the Guarani, and you have the Spanish and the Portuguese. And so that's sort of the setting for this. You have the Jesuits operating in this area, and they're setting up a mission. Really, the movie is about two particular people: Father Gabriel, the head of the mission, and then a mercenary and slave trader by the name of Rodrigo. Father Gabriel is played by Jeremy Irons. Rodrigo is played by Robert De Niro. And Dale mentioned earlier that movies really bring in a variety of art forms. And to me, this movie is very much a movie that highlights and features music. And music plays a key role in the movie itself. I think the movie is beautiful to watch, and it is absolutely magnificent to listen to. And so if you watch it, I really advise you to have a great speaker and to turn up the volume. But the power of music, the power of beauty as a rhetorical device, as a means of persuasion in the conversion of the Guarani is really at the heart of the movie. And if you take even a step back, the music itself really, it's not unlike Peter and the Wolf, where characters have their own song, their own score. In the case of Father Gabriel, there's this beautiful piece called Gabriel's Oboe, which is, I think, kind of, it's associated with his character. It's triumphant, beautiful. I think it's a symbol for salvation. And then you have another piece associated with Rodrigo, which is called, I would call it The River, and it's a more active piece. And as the movie progresses, mirroring the character development that occurs, which I think is tremendous, there is a development with those particular scores themselves, if you watch it carefully and listen to the music. And I think the way the music develops mirrors the character development, and I think helps give some clues about how the movie ends, which I think can be troubling. It was troubling for me the first couple of times I saw it, and I've rewatched it now a few times recently. Dale, am I done?
Yeah, you are done, and now the rest of us will react. And I will start by saying Ennio Morricone definitely is one of the greatest film composers. I don't know if I would call him the greatest because there is Hans Zimmer and John Williams out there. However, the good, the bad, the ugly is a perfect description of the Troubadours. Who else would like to react?
Oh, well, let's start with the beautiful. I'll go next. Well, I talking about music, you see, this is going to be a question. Actually, if Dan doesn't know the answer and the other troubadours don't know the answer, then I maybe would invite the participants to let us know. I haven't seen that film for many years, probably 20 years, but I do remember a native boy soprano singing what I think was Allegri's Miserere. But it's 20 years, so I'm not sure. So could someone put me out of my misery?
I can't remember if it was Allegri either, but it was some Baroque piece he was singing, and it was astonishing. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yep.
I think it's a spectacular film. It's a great film. It's also a problematic film. The screenplay is by Robert Bolt, if I'm not mistaken, the same man who cribbed the best of Thomas More in making A Man for All Seasons, but also wrote a problematic play there because he emphasized freedom of conscience, which is not why More went to the scaffold. But nonetheless, there's a great moment in The Mission where the Jesuit priest, Jeremy Irons, is showing the Reduzione, the Jesuit mission or reductions, and he's showing it to the Portuguese plantation owner, and whose name I can't recall, but as Dan says, there's a lot of politics involved here. But the Portuguese plantation owner looks at the Reduzione where all of the natives are at work, and they have learned polyphony. They've made instruments. They've learned animal husbandry and crop rotation. And he looks at it and he says, I don't see how this is any different from our plantations. And the Jeremy Irons priest says, well, that is the difference. It's theirs. And this was the thing. We tend to think of Catholic social justice as something that Leo XIII, first put down, but it finds expression in the missions in Latin America and in Baja and Alta California. The idea of giving property introducing the idea of property, of the means of production, and then of course baptism, right? that goes with this to the natives of that land. This is what the missions were intended to do. And I think it's the most compelling line from, a spectacular film. I'm glad Dan chose it.
Dan, I want to thank you. The Mission is one of these movies that I enjoy, but I hate for a number of reasons. One, it's Robert Bolt, so we don't get Catholicism, we get French existentialism.
Yeah, exactly.
Which everyone thinks is Catholicism, and we have Jesuit advisors to the movie, which are sort of injecting in liberation theology. The movie's really problematic on many levels, but it's a masterpiece of the cinema. And I love the idea of approaching the movie thinking about music. And those people that are watching, I would encourage, we're all going to talk about movies we like. It's so hard in some respect to have a disciplined conversation about movies. And I think Dan's given us a great example of what you can do to elevate a discussion about movies. So it's not just, well, I like that movie. Well, I didn't like that movie.
Right.
But to think of it structurally or artistically, and music, that's a great key, Dan. Thank you for that. I suggest that everyone watch this movie to see one of the great bamboozles in cinema history. And that is Robert De Niro's ability to convince people he can act.
Well, it's true, because along those lines, in spite of the theological problems with the movie being written by an atheist and being advised by Jesuits and Robert De Niro,
Which is worse.
the scene of him finding forgiveness as he literally lays his burdens down is probably the best portrayal of that you'd ever find in the cinema.
It's unbelievable when the native the Guarani comes up with a knife, right? Because De Niro has been hunting his people down, and De Niro has carried his burden up this cliff, up past the falls, and the Guarani comes with the knife and holds it to his throat. And rather than cutting his throat, he cuts the rope, which carries, which is attached to his baggage. And it is such an unbelievably powerful scene of mercy and forgiveness. De Niro breaks down weeping, and then that turns into laughter and joy, and it's powerful.
Indeed. Okay, we're off to a great start. Now for a bit of a come down, we'll go to Christopher Check and see what he has to say about one of his favorite films.
It's actually my favorite film. When I was 10 years old, in 1975 or 76, I guess, 1976, though this picture was made in 75, it was released in December of 75. My father took Edward and me, the two younger Czech boys, to see the picture Jaws, which is not the movie I'm going to talk about. And I guess it has its merits. Steven Spielberg is a hack, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, but while we were waiting in line to see the movie, my father pointed to a poster for a picture showing at the adjacent theater. And he said, "That's the movie I want to see." And it was John Huston's The Man Who Would Be King. And I got home from seeing Jaws that night, and it turns out I had the chicken pox, as everyone in Mrs. Gray's fourth grade class did. And so I was down for 2 weeks. This was back when you could get the chicken pox, when you were allowed to. And but then when I recovered from it, there I was up and running, and I called my friends. Nobody wanted to go to the movies that day. This is a true story. I was 10 years old, and I guess you could do this when you were 10 in 1975, 76. I walked a couple miles to the KB Baronet West in Bethesda, Maryland. I was the only person in the theater, and I watched The Man Who Would Be King. The Man Who Would Be King is John Huston's greatest picture, and that says a great deal because, of course, he made Treasurer of the Sierra Madre, for which he earned Best Supporting Actor for his dad. Walter Houston. I think there are 3 generations of Oscars in the Houston family. Walter, John, and then Angelica for Prizzi's Honor, I guess, a film I've never seen. Anyway, I was the only one in the theater. And I was taken from the opening credits and captivated by the score, which is based on the Maureen, or known to our friends at St. Greg's and St. Martin's, the Minstrel Boy, although they use a different hymn in there. The Son of God goes forth to war. But it is based on a Rudyard Kipling story about 2 men, soldiers in the British Army, raconteurs, played by Sean Connery and Michael Caine, never better paired. Well, maybe the only time they were paired, under the care of John Huston, describing to Rudyard Kipling, who is the newspaper editor, how they are going to go off to a remote section or region, I should say, of Afghanistan called Kafiristan, which actually apparently does exist, to take it over and become kings. And the film is laced with all kinds of Masonic lore going back to Alexander the Great, as the Masons like to claim. So all you Catholics who are watching, who are scandalized that the president of Catholic Answers is recommending a film rooted in Masonic lore, well, too bad. It's a great picture. It is beautifully shot. It's hard to imagine a film this beautifully shot being made today. Each landscape so well composed, no CGI, a magnificent adventure story. It's a story of friendship, of brotherhood, of adventure, of horses, of swords, of battle, of avoiding women and then not avoiding women to your peril, and then overreach. A better film has never been made. If you want this summer to sit down and enjoy a great picture from start to finish, which demands nothing of you but a desire to watch a great story with a great score, The Man Who Would Be King.
Who would first like to respond to Christopher tonight, Joseph?
Well, I was actually going to mention that he was guilty of systemic racism.
There's a great scene of systemic racism in the picture.
Oh, did you say systemic? Because towards the end of his talk about the film, which I haven't seen, so I can't make any intelligent comment on it, he did actually mention the word Finnish. And we do know that for Dale, Swedish, that is a red rag to a bull.
It's the Norwegians who are really the problems, but
I'm actually amazed that Joseph Pierce has not seen this picture, because it's written. And by the way, we were talking about movies based on books. This is the one movie that's better than the book. And it's actually a short story, maybe 30, 35 page. And it is a wonderful short story. And the chap that wrote Peter Pan.
okay. Well, anyways, we're talking to you now, Christopher. You're
Okay,
not,
sorry. I thought I was supposed to respond to my colleagues there.
I would say the literary aspect of it, I enjoyed the fact, Christopher, you forgot to mention Christopher Plummer playing Rudyard Kipling, who does a marvelous job.
Not the first choice. Yeah.
I thought he was great. I thought the scene on the
train
where Michael Caine lifts his watch is marvelous. But in fact, that's probably the most memorable scene for me. I was entirely disappointed with this movie when I watched it. I watched it because Michael Caine talked about the fact that, at the end of his life, he can look back and say that he did one good movie. He did The Man Who Would Be King, or
He's
what's
right.
it called? Is that the name of it? The Man Who Would Be King?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
It's clear you're a Philistine. Is there someone else who wants to say something intelligent?
But
Shall we go to William? Yeah.
It was great.
Are you done, Dale? Because you don't seem to have much
No, I'm done.
to contribute.
Yeah,
to
okay,
this one.
I'm done.
You're on the wrong side of history on this one, Dale.
Amen.
No, this is a great movie, and this is sort of, if you could reduce the 5 of us to just 2 of us, it's basically watching the Troubadours. Dale's kind of right. It isn't the most artistic, wonderful, well-structured movie out there. It's
Thanks
just
be to God.
it's so enjoyable to watch because of the evident friendship of the characters, but even more deeply, it's one of these things where it's great to just watch it and think, those 2 actors aren't acting. I'm watching a friendship play out. And from the point of view of learning something about movies, as it's been hinted at, this is actually a really interesting movie to read a good short story and see a film, and to right away, because it's not that complicated, to see film and literature are both art forms. They're both interesting. They are different.
Good.
I
Dan,
love this movie.
Anything else to add, Dan?
Not really. I watched it recently. I thought it was very funny. My favorite scene was in the train.
Yeah.
But I'm somewhere between Dale and Chris and William. I enjoyed it. Do I think it's the best movie I've ever seen? No, I don't. I'll be glad to watch it again and plumb the depths a little bit more. But I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to say to everyone's watching, if any of my colleagues recommend a better movie than I've recommended tonight, I'd like to know about it. Yeah.
Well, we are about to find out, because we're going to hear what Joseph Pierce recommends. Joseph.
Well, I mean, I'm out of my depth here because I'm someone who prefers to read than to watch films. I used to watch a lot of films, and I'm very handicapped lately because I haven't been able to watch anything for the last 10 years I don't want my daughter to watch. And we're still in that situation. So I've watched very few films. Those I have watched are on planes. And the one I'm going to mention is one I saw fairly recently on a plane, which I thought was great. And I want to encourage people to watch. Before I do that, though, very briefly, as we were talking about music, I am also going to very much recommend The Passion of Joan of Arc, the classic 1920s silent film, especially as an antidote to the really hideous modern feminist anti-Catholic Joan of Arc, which was made recently. And that is, if you do watch that film, make sure you have the version that has Richard Einhorn's soundtrack. Yep. Obviously, silent films, so the music's important. And Richard Einhorn's a modern composer, but his soundtrack for that film is astonishing. But that's not my film. My film is one I was flying fairly recently, last year or so, with my wife, and she was sitting on the other side of the aisle next to one of the children and laughing hysterically, watching a film called The Death of Stalin. Now, I just couldn't imagine my wife, who's about the least political person I know, finding a film called The Death of Stalin the least bit funny. So that intrigued me. So a few weeks later, I was flying by myself and watched it on the plane, and it is hilarious. Now, what I would say is I don't want people to accuse me of asking them to watch films and then they're going to be offended by bad language. There's no explicit sex or violence, but there's bad language. What I loved about it is this great, dark, satirical, but nonetheless rambunctious British humor. Sort of 40 Towers, Monty Python, but darker, Blackadder. But it's very true to the facts of the time of Stalin's death. It's a dark satire on the hideous reality of the Soviet Union in 1953. So as a wake-up call to the woke generation, to actually see the reality of Soviet communism, and yet in a way which is rambunctiously funny and laugh out loud funny, is something that I would recommend. It's just I look forward to watching it again. It's one of those films I can't watch because I've got a daughter who will see it. But I look forward to seeing it again at some stage in the future. And that really, is all I want to say on The Death of Stalin. And as none of the other troubadours have seen it, I suspect there's not going to be a great engagement thereafter.
Good. Let's move on.
I saw it. It's coarse. It's got its moments. The Passion of Joan of Arc, you all should watch.
Yeah, that was clever how he got 2 films in on his, one a masterpiece for the ages, and the other one Joan of Arc.
Something you watch on an airplane.
So something the the most recent movie on the airplane. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I obviously can't say anything either, but I'm intrigued, and especially with your recommendation, Joseph. That's good enough for me. Good enough for me.
So far, I'm winning.
Yes, yes, we're keeping track. Good,
We haven't,
good.
but we haven't finished
Yes.
yet.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, William, would you like me to go before you? I'll be the penultimate and then introduce you as the cleanup hitter.
I think that's how we usually do it.
Well, then let's do it that way. I'd like to go. I'll go next then. This is a movie based on literature, based on literature by one of the great storytellers, Isaac Dinesen, and the movie is Babette's Feast. And what's interesting is this is a movie that I've only seen once, and it was over 30 years ago.
Wow.
I can't tell you who directed it. It was in Danish with subtitles. I've read stuff by Isaac Dinesen. I have not read Babette's Feast, so I don't know which is better, the book or the movie. I do feel like after watching the movie, I do feel like I've read the book or I've read something. I certainly read the subtitles. But more importantly, after watching the film, I feel like I had a feast. And that's the great event that takes place in this movie. But what I liked about the movie, I mean, and having only seen it once, I'd love to see it again to see if it holds up in my, in viewing it as well as it does in my mind. But there are scenes in that movie that are just burned into my head that I can watch right now by closing my eyes and see them again. And the setup is it's in a small town in Denmark. There's two spinster sisters whose father started a small religious breakaway Puritan sect, and they basically just study the Bible. And he dies, and they carry it on with a small group of followers. And the thing is, these Puritan women and this Puritan cult, these are my people. I know those people because I grew up with those people. And, in my case, it was Swedish Covenant and Swedish Baptists. Just very good, very narrow people that live in a very small world. And that is portrayed just beautifully in the movie and well done. And so what happens, it quickly goes through their lives. And then at a certain point, they take in a woman who has been exiled from France named Babette. And they agree to take care of her because she's without a home and without a country. And she serves as their maid and their cook. And at a certain point, she wins the lottery. And she wants to do something to show her gratitude to the two women she's been living with and who have been taking care of her. And she wants to put on a feast for them. And they, condescendingly but politely said, well, that would be fine. Yes, you can do that. But, they're not the feast type people. And also one of the spinster sisters actually becomes convinced that this whole thing is of the devil, because it's going to be a very bad thing. It's going to be indulgent. It's going to be sensation, and there could be pleasure involved. All the things that Puritans must avoid. But out of the goodness of their hearts, they want to do this for Babette because they can see that this is very important for her. And so they agree to do this. And she puts on this feast. Well, it turns out that she was the chef in a very exclusive Parisian restaurant and is one of the greatest chefs in the world. And she brings in ingredients. She imports them, and wine, and a live turtle, for the turtle soup, and a very particular game fowl and things like that. And they get a small group of people together, and she puts on the feast for them. And one of the people attending the feast had been a suitor to one of the spinster sisters years before. He still knows the family, but now he's a colonel or a general in the army. So he's a man of the world. And they're all eating this food as she's serving and preparing it, and it's just a multi-course meal. And he's astonished at what he's eating because he's been to Paris, he's been to that restaurant. He's, this is only served in one place in the world, and all the rest of them are just eating this incredible food, unlike anything they've ever tasted in their lives. But they're just putting up with it. But the slow sensation of them enjoying this amazing meal. And I don't want to give away the ending. There's a lovely twist at the end, but I do want to talk about there's 3 scenes at the end that just do it for me. And they all involve wine. We've had the feast. So this is a movie that you can both eat and drink. And at the end of the feast, when they're all leaving, these old Puritans, they've all had more to drink than they've ever had in their life. They probably have drunk for the first time in their lives, and they're probably happy for the first time in their lives. And they're standing out in the town square, holding hands, singing an old folk song or hymn, and it's such a tender, beautiful moment, just a gorgeous moment. And that's part of the magic that was created. And then you have the teenage boy that Babette has help her serve the meal, and he's helping clean up afterwards. And when he's cleaning up the plates, he picks up a glass of wine, and he looks both ways and takes a drink, and has that forbidden pleasure of drinking wine. And of course, that's not the way to enjoy wine in a forbidden sense. But he gets to taste some wine. But then the great scene is that Babette, at the end of the meal, she served this magnificent meal, and she sits back with a glass and just takes that last sip. I mean, the reward for a perfect evening that she has put on, and just you can enjoy that sip with her as she's taking it, all done perfectly. It is a sympathetic portrayal of the Puritans, but it also shows how problematic the Puritans are, which is why Chesterton would enjoy the movie. And me, I just wanted to talk about this movie to show that I have, make no mistake, good taste.
Well, I would add to that I would say that you've definitely named the best film so far, better than the 2 that I named, and better than Christopher Check's film I haven't seen. But Babette's Feast is a marvelous film, and of course the feast itself is a metaphor for beauty. And I think the thing with Puritanism is that they distrust beauty, and she brings beauty to them, and it serves not just the culinary arts but all the other arts, and the pacing of it, the slowness of it, it's a sublime feast in itself. And I'm with you, Dale.
Yeah, I would. Chris is on mute, so I'll just jump in. I think this is. I know what all the movies are. I think this is probably the best movie of the night. I enjoy. This was a great Troubadours because preparing for this was just getting to watch several great movies and not feeling guilty about the time associated with that. But there's a great quote at the end. Babette says, and I don't want to give anything away either, but she says that an artist is never poor. And, the depiction of this sectarian, this very austere sectarian group, they're kind of falling apart, right? Babette's been there for 14 years, living in kind of obscurity alongside of them, and she's seeing them kind of fall apart. There's a lot of infighting, and the group is coming apart, and she gives them the greatest gift that she can, which is this gorgeous meal, and and it's so beautiful to see as they start to warm up, the wine starts to do its work, the exquisite uh, preparation and table setting, and the food, and they begin to have kind of warm and sympathetic feelings towards one another for, for the first time in a decade or more. You know, it's a very Catholic movie. I mean, it's such a Catholic movie. So I'm glad you picked this, Dale. This is one of the best. This is top 5 movie out there, period.
You know, Dale, it's been about as long since I've seen it. And it is a beautiful picture. You're right. When I was a kid, my dad was the principal cook in the house, and he passed that to me, and I passed that to my boys. And Nicholas, my oldest, of course, is better than all of us. But throwing a party has always been part of the ethic of the Czech house. And I know, Dale, you've been over to the well, what they call the well, there on Wellesley Street in St. Paul for some of the parties that my boys throw. And it is exactly as Dan says, and as our Lord knew at Cana when he made more wine after people had been drinking for a while, right? And in the end, why? Because it's sacramental, right? It's the things that we enjoy through our senses. So our Lord understood what he was doing when he made the sacraments and involving our senses in them, and that joy that events such as these, in the end, that joy, well, it's sacramental. It's a beautiful picture. Good choice, Dale. Not as good as mine.
I can't say anything but positive things about that movie, Dale. It's on the Vatican's top 100. It's a beautiful movie. Yeah, there's not. Look, if I'm going to put on my Fahey hat and play the Fahey role, the only thing I can say is, yeah, it's beautiful. You know, it teaches us that it's nice to drink wine and have good meals, and Puritans got it wrong.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dale. But no, it's an awesome movie. It reminds me, there's one movie that's it's not really a contrast. I don't know if anyone has seen it, but I would sneak it in as a recommendation. It's similar in the same vein as Babette's Feast, and that's The Tree of the Wooden Clogs. I don't know, have any of you seen that?
No, it's been one of those movies on my list, but I've never seen it.
It's another one on the Vatican list. Very few people know it. It simply follows an Italian commune in about 1880, 1890 through 1 year, set up near Milan in the Po Valley. And it's a visual depiction of Catholic life. Almost tending towards, in that Italian way, film realism, documentary. Whereas Babette's Feast is more of it's following the short story. It's constructed in a traditional narrative. It's one of those movies everyone should see and probably see several times.
Yeah.
Babette's Feast is just, I don't know that it's the best, Dale, but I don't know. It's really good.
William, real quick, what is the Vatican's list? I'm not familiar with this. I'm always finding lists, and they always.
It's a list.
Of books you're not supposed to read. Yeah.
They came out. John Paul II loved movies.
Right.
After Pius XII, he's the pontiff that most loved movies. Pius XII wrote a really interesting apostolic exhortation on what I would call film or cinema. And after Pius XII, John Paul II picked that up, and he had one of the papal commissions come up with a list of the 100 movies that were endorsed, recommended, applauded by the Vatican, both for their artistry and what they depicted about the human character and community. And I think it's still maintained by the Vatican. It's a great list.
Could I say something appertaining to that? That Dr. Fahey is a partner of mine in publishing the St. Austin Review. This is a good excuse to promote the St. Austin Review, because we had a regular column, there we go, So look, and if you actually got the Thomas More, if you hold it up a bit further, Thomas More Cottage logo at the bottom there on the cover. That's the latest issue. But for many years, over a period probably of about 4 or 5 years at least, 4 or 5 years at least, we actually had a regular column where a movie critic went through. I don't know if it's every title, but certainly most of the titles, most of the titles on the Vatican's list. So if you're able to pick up back issues, you can go through and get 1,500 word reviews on each of those.
Hey, before William goes, can I just sneak in real quick? Another great movie about food. Appreciating the same thing as Babette's Feast, but completely different. Big Night.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that's an awful movie. Okay, William, you're
No,
next.
Dale, honestly.
Great,
Big
great
Night. Write it
soundtrack.
down, folks. It's a brilliant film.
Great
Big Night.
soundtrack. Great movie. Bad
Yes.
morality.
There's
Bad morality. It's a great. Everyone should see Big Night, and we all say, but we don't agree with the morality depicted in the movie.
Oh, there you go.
But
Come
you got to
on.
say that about 70% of movies.
Okay,
Yeah.
William, you're next.
Okay, so I don't like to say favorites about anything but wives. You know, I have a favorite wife. So Dale gave explicit instructions that we were to talk about one movie, our favorite movie. So I'm going to talk about 3 movies instead because I want to be disobedient to Dale. But I'm going to talk about one thing, and that's a director. Now, the tack I took is not my favorite movie in the sense of I just love this movie because that really is too hard for me. Instead, I'm going to recommend 3 movies that I think you should watch to learn about movies. And those 3 movies are all by the same 2 producers, or directors, excuse me, Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger, British directors. They called themselves the Archers, who produced movies in the late 30s through the early 50s. Black Narcissus and The Red Shoes, probably the most famous of these movies. And I'm going to go through quickly the movies, not sort of the whole plot, but just as a teaser for each one, and talk about these movies as a unity for prompting conversation with friends and for study, for actually kind of watching more than once to get a handle on what's a film, what's a movie, how is this different than a novel. It shouldn't be in competition with a novel. They're different art forms. So the 3 movies are The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp, 1943, I Know Where I'm Going, 1945, which is close to my favorite movie if I were to have a favorite movie, and A Matter of Life and Death, 1946. I'll put them up on the list that apparently Dale wants us to circulate. The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp was based on a political cartoon that made fun of the British establishment. Colonel Blimp was kind of an overweight military version of Bertie Wooster. The movie is about an officer's life from the Boer War to 1942-43. The questions that the movie raises have to do with, on the surface, can you break the rules in order to preserve civilization? It in some ways anticipates aspects of another great movie I love, Breaker Morant, which I thought Chris Check was going to take, and so I yielded on Breaker Morant.
Yeah, I thought you were doing
Life and
Breaker
Death of
Morant.
Colonel Blimp. Life and Death of Colonel Blimp asks that question: can you, if you're fighting the Nazis, do you have to get away from the old-fashioned modes of British conduct to win that war? And it follows the life of one man. It has a love story. It's a study of friendship. You go below the surface, it's a great study of what it means to grow old and how you develop a character and have a dignified character as you age. Fantastic movie visually. Maybe the most beautiful movie I've ever seen filmed. You get to see what you can do and what you miss if you don't watch Technicolor movies. The second movie, again, by the same directors, Powell and Pressburger, I Know Where I'm Going. This one's in black and white. On the surface, it's about a very headstrong woman, Joan Webster, who thinks, I know what I'm doing in life. I've established a career. I've built up my image and power. Of according to my station, maybe beyond my station, and I'm going to marry a wealthy industrialist who has this wonderful home on a Scottish island. And storms and misfortune keep her from getting to the island that she thinks she wants to go. And she meets a naval officer on leave and struggles with, should she be getting to the destination to marry the man that's appropriate to her vision of where she wants to go, or is she in love? So on the surface, it's a fairy tale, it's a love story. It's also a very Chestertonian exploration of what a community is and what's wrong with concentrations of wealth. Below the surface, it's about what it means to explore the rather dangerous currents of your own heart. The third movie is called A Matter of Life and Death. This is about a Royal Air Force squadron leader who's returning from a bombing mission. He's bailed out his crew. His Lancaster is all shot up. His crew doesn't know this, but he bailed them out, and he knows he doesn't have a parachute. As he's coming in, he's radioing England, and he gets into a conversation with an American WAC, who's the radio officer. And in this very brief space of time, they fall in love. He says he doesn't want to die in the flames. The plane is burning, and he throws himself out of the plane. He then wakes up on the beach. And the rest of the movie is going back and forth. He finds this American woman, June, and the movie is an exploration of what's going on. Is this in his head? Is it really happening? The movie depicts a trial, an extended trial, because he refuses to go to the other world because the other world made a mistake. The other world sends a French agent to bring him to the other world. He should have died. But he says, no, I didn't make a mistake, and now I'm in love. So he has to stand trial where the question of law versus love is sort of pitted against one another on which is greater. These three are fantastic movies. They're a kind of unity. They're just fun to watch. They're hard to follow and understand. They're very, very demanding. And if you like the modern director Christopher Nolan, who did The Prestige and Dunkirk, these two men, Powell and Pressburger, are the father of Nolan. They anticipated playing around with time sequencing, different perspectives, where you don't understand the fullness of the story until the last minutes of the movie. Powell was a master of this. I also think Powell's not a Catholic. He's a Christian who struggled. But I think these movies fulfill what Pius XII said is the ideal film. The ideal film for Pius XII did two things. It worked to raise the consciousness of the viewer so that he had a richer understanding after watching the film of human dignity, and it gave him a loving understanding of all aspects of humanity, its brokenness, its golden moments, all of humanity. It gave him a kind of interior love of humanity. That's how Pius XII, in a nutshell, defines these movies. I think these movies as a unity, this is how I'll finish, ask three questions that all of us ask, and they give an answer that's consistent. They ask, and this is principally what the question of life and death of Colonel Blimp is about, why do we struggle? Why do we struggle in life? Against people, with people, why do we struggle? The second question is, why do we fall in love well? Not merely why do we fall in love, but why is it that we can fall in love well and marry? The second movie, the terminus is marriage. In fact, all these movies are, in a way, a defense of marriage. And the third question is there anything stronger than death? And the answer to all these questions in these three movies is a deeper, circling exploration of what love is. And so both the storyline, the questions the movies raise, and especially if you want to understand film as an art form, these movies are great because for me, the definition of is it really a great movie is when you finish it, would you really enjoy just saying, get some more popcorn, let's watch it again. That was incredible. I want to see it again. and all three of these fulfill that.
Great. I want to thank Joseph Pierce for going so short because William went so long. And of course, William gave us 3 movies, but he's a Trinitarian sort of guy. It was William who first recommended that I watch the Powell and Emmerich movies, and I did see quite a few, although I didn't see the first 2 that you mentioned. I have not seen those yet, but I've seen some other ones. Ironically, I had seen A Matter of Life and Death back in the 70s with my former brother-in-law, Larry Norman, and we were watching it on a late night show, and we were both in awe of the cinematography, of just how visual the movie was. And you make a very good point that these movies are movies. They're not based on literature. They were written for film, and they exploit the film art form in portraying them. And I completely echo everything that William says about them.
And if I could add something here, that I haven't seen any of William's 3 movies, but I'm convinced they're better than Christopher Check's.
I haven't seen them either. I thought you were doing Breaker Morant, so I was ready for Breaker Morant. Another excellent.
That was a strategy.
Yeah, it was a great
Excellent.
strategy.
Yeah. Always one step ahead of us, Dr. Fahey.
Time for audience questions, Dale?
Well, we have almost no time for that, but we will be making a list of all 5 of us will be sending out our list in the next day or so of our supposedly 10.
Did you say 30?
Yeah.
30.
10. Yeah, I guess you could do 10 trilogies, I suppose.
I'm going to give a list of 10 films I haven't seen that are better than anybody else's.
But it's interesting. Some of the names of the great filmmakers have not come up tonight, and would they even be on the list? Things like Alfred Hitchcock. Does that count? Does suspense as an art form count? The great mysteries that Chester would love so much.
Hitchcock is a great guy, but he went too far, and we all feel the damage of it.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right. Let's see. We have there is and the Westerns. We didn't touch the Westerns at all, did we?
John Ford. Although John Ford's best movie is not a Western.
The Quiet Man.
It's on my it's not The Quiet Man, but it is set in Ireland. It's on my list. You're gonna have to open the email to find out.
I'm gonna have to subscribe.
Real quick. Top Western. Everybody, go. Dale.
True Grit.
Dale. Yeah. Top Western. Go.
I'll go True Grit.
Chris.
But the first one with the John Wayne.
The original, right?
Chris.
True Grit.
Dr. Fahey.
True Grit, the second version. The Wayne version is garbage.
Shut up.
Stop it.
High
Nonsense.
Noon. High Noon.
Yeah, High Noon is great. So is The Searchers.
Joseph.
Fisherman's Friend. It's set in Cornwall.
Okay. An
All right.
Englishman has nothing to say about
That's
Westerns.
the Wild West.
Make that clear
It
right
is the
now.
Wild West.
By the way, the correct answer is Lonesome Dove.
That's not a movie.
It's a TV show.
That's not a movie. That's TV.
See, that's one thing we avoided
It's
tonight.
fabulous.
We avoided it tonight successfully until right now. We stayed out of TV, another medium slightly different from film.
Yeah.
Christopher Check, you have an important announcement to make. What is that announcement?
Next, Prairie Troubadours, the third Tuesday of August.
Which is
the third Tuesday of August.
yeah.
Will feature our special guest troubadour, John Cutterback,
Woo!
professor of philosophy and pig farmer. I detect a theme at Christendom College. John is known to all of you. He's actually lectured live at Prairie Troubadour, and I know he's going to be talking about the home or the family or making bacon or something valuable along those lines, detoxing from tech, or his trip to Florence where everything was locked down and he couldn't go to any churches.
Yeah, it's like the guy we do an art professor who went to Florence, and he thought that the word for a museum was Cuso. He's close.
And so Unico, right. Now, you don't want to miss John Cutterback. He's great.
Yeah.
Well, especially if people are tired of us, this is a great way to take a break. And so please join us in a month on the 18th of August for the Troubadours with guest Troubadour John Cutterbeck. You will be hearing from us in the next day or so. And it's always a great pleasure to be with my friends. I hope we can do it truly in person as soon as possible. But
That's real.
in the meantime, here we are. There's a pig. That's
He's
fantastic.
scheduled for November, right?
Yeah,
He'll be the
Uh,
guest in November.
yeah,
guest
that's exactly
of
right. The guest of honor.
That's great. And we were just talking about Babette's Feast, weren't we? Fantastic. Well, very good, everyone. I will look forward to seeing you all in a month, and God bless everyone. Thank you for joining us on the Troubadours tonight.
Praise God. Glory.